All right.
Well, hello to the hotel guys. It is
Hi,
so
Nancy.
wonderful to be in your presence, even though we're in separate continents, but we're
Yes.
via the Zoom, the greatness of Zoom. Here we are together
Right.
again.
We're both in the Western Hemisphere. So we're in southern Peru and you're in northern US.
Yes, I certainly am. And you're in southern Peru.
With very good internet.
Pardon me?
And with very good internet.
Yeah, isn't that perfect?
Yeah.
But you have arrived there a year since you left. Is that right? You left Oregon a year ago.
Yeah, it's been a year since we left. And we'll be in Peru about a month total. We've been a month here, a month there, a month over there. So yeah, we are 1 year on the road so far.
Well, that's why we're here, because myself, I'm taking advantage of this opportunity to satiate my curiosity on where you have been over the last year. And I'm bringing a lot of people along with me who I think are also very interested in knowing, how many hotel rooms have you been in? How many continents have you visited?
Well, that's easier. Hotel rooms, I don't know. It doesn't really matter because it's really about the discovery, which is the name of the tour, right? So, I mean, what this has been for us has been a year of discovery. We wanted to set out and see new places. And we've actually officially, after our visit to Machu Picchu for a couple of weeks that begins next week, we're ending this particular tour. So we feel like we've accomplished what we set out to do. We can certainly talk about the 7 different regions that we have traveled to since we started this time last year.
Oh my gosh. I mean, just what's on the tail end of Peru, first of all, I'm really excited to finally, I think it'll be a kind of a grand finale, if you will, of this tour. Which started in Thailand in mid-October, and Malaysia, and then a quick family gathering and a wedding over Christmas in Texas, and dashed off into Mexico, and we did return, pay taxes, met my grandson. We then flew to South America. We loved 5 weeks in Ecuador, which included 8 days in the Galapagos. Still regretting I have not met a blue-footed booby, but my t-shirt still looks good. And then from there, we just kind of made our way, because this whole Egypt tour was really what motivated us to kind of build the tour. And Paul is 100% the tour guide, excellence. I mean, he has set up this trip kind of around this journey into Egypt, Jordan, and then of course, then we tailed it in the end of summer into Turkey.
Right after being in Europe, a little bit of
the whole summer of
Spain,
Europe,
France, and Italy.
Yeah, so it was like this whole dream of like travel, and yes, a lot of hotels, a lot of them in these organized tours that it's like, oh my gosh, we just arrived. Can we just rest for a day and enjoy the 4 or 5 star kind of vibe? But, with like many tours, you push on and push forward. And wow.
Well, we came to Peru from Turkey, but I think it's worth to, so that was like a good overview of the different regions. And the 2 that I'll just point out are Egypt and Turkey, because it was in those places, half of our time in Turkey was with an organized small tour with a focus on archaeological. And then our entire time in Egypt was our first ever organized sort of 3-week tour. It included 3 days in Jordan at the end. So there's a real story for us to talk. We can talk about little hotel rooms that we stayed in here.
What do you want to know?
But what I would suggest is that the pros and cons of sort of being on an organized tour, for us, Rich started to address it because they move you so fast,
Yes.
But the flip side is that, that's kind of what a lot of working people need. in order to do it on their time frame. Not everybody will stay as long as we might in one place, but there's an efficiency to it as well. So it was really definitely pros and cons of being on an organized tour. One of the great cons was just the great people, really, in both tours. They were fantastic.
Yes, and with that said, when you know, at my age now, I kind of want a break. So it's like, you know, 5 days out of 10 or 12. It's like, okay, you get to do nothing. You don't hear that on these tours. You know, no one's making money if you're just laying around.
Yeah, we understand that we're like a widget in the machine in a way, and there's a value on us per day. And so that's just the way these tours, that's how I look at it anyway.
Yeah. And so it's like, you know, knowing that we had these two events, right? We needed then respite after each one, because Paul and I are just like, we're really good travel mates. So it's like, he needs his quiet time, I need my quiet time. He's like, you know, right now just intensely updating our blog at hotelguys.com. So this 10 days has been super sacred for us in Paracas, Peru.
So we are on one of those resting periods right now after the Turkey tour. And then after the Egypt tour, we went and rested in Spain, and then did some kind of light combination travel through Europe for the summer. You know, like Rome was amazing. There were some like flashy, busy times, but there were
Rome together.
You know, Rome and Athens and Barcelona and even Madrid at the very beginning. You know, I love those locations. But we had downtime too in Europe through the summer. We were at some naturist resorts on the coast, on the Atlantic coast, and on the seas in Italy. And so, you know,
in the heat of Europe summer, we had 2 fabulous weeks in Puglia with these delightful people from, like, I don't know, 5, 6 different countries, all European,
in southern Italy,
Israeli, that are naturists like us. And we find, you know, we stayed in nice hotels, but really you get to know people who are like, you know, okay, this is naturist, so you can go to dinner with a towel and that's all you have to wear. So it's like 2 weeks of that, truly, when it was like 108 to 115, where we were amongst these olive trees for generations have this bacterial fungus that have killed like 60 million of these ancient trees. So intermixed with these really sick and dying trees are these struggling trees in this whole region in Puglia. Now, on the other side of the boot, where we visited Paul's ancestors, which is like another whole cool story, because we were tracking his great grandfather who hailed from this lovely village.
Nocera Terenese in Calabria.
And that whole region, the olive trees are a different variety,
and they were doing
they're healthy as can be.
So we had some real variety of experiences.
Oh, Italy by train. Oh, romantic. It was like so easy. Again, Paul organizes it. So, I mean, come along.
So you've given us a little taste of a lot of different places.
Yeah.
I'd like to really hone in. And the story that captivates me is the ancestry. I think we all find it, especially living in North America, none of us are from here originally. We all have history somewhere else. And you set out to find yours. Can you tell us all how this came to be? And did the experience actually live up to your expectations?
Good. She's so,
we love Nancy. Well, it's funny because I want to talk about my grandmother and I want to talk about India. So my grandmother was somebody that was interested in genealogy, and she was in my family, the person that sort of just left that door open if you discover that maybe later in life. And my interest was different when I was younger. I didn't care as much. Then when we were in India in 18 and 19 or 17 or all of those, but I came home with this burning question, which was sort of part of the germination of the whole Discover tour too, which was that from India and starting to look back into their deep, deep history, who are these people and where did they come from? And so I came home with that one very specific question. And at the beginning of COVID, what ended up being two major threads of activity and interest was reading about who the Indians were and where they came from, which led to readings in genetics, and all roads were pointing to Egypt, which actually then led us to Egypt. So it was just this big exploration about, you know, in a broader sense too, than it was about, I was doing both of our ancestries on ancestry.com at the same time, early COVID. And it was from there that I kind of re-hearkened and rediscovered the interest and the value of it that my grandmother instilled in me about just who our people are, where they come from. And so we decided that, you know, I'd had other family members that had made their way, including my grandfather, my Sposato grandfather, my Italian grandfather, made his way in the late 70s to that village where his father had been born and his great grandfather had been born. And beyond that, the Catholic Church didn't keep too much track that survived. But they are, you know, they're the main institution that gets relied on in Italy for those records, even though they're held at the municipal offices where we then visited this summer. So after we were done with our fabulous Amalfi Coast visit for a few days out of Rome, we took the train on down to Calabria and found a little 3-night homestay kind of on a farm. This younger guy. And so we had a very interesting accommodation that was within walking distance of it was in the village nearby. And we explored at the municipal offices my genealogical roots. And I thought it would be more of a discovery of my great-grandfather and what the records really indicated that we could discover, because we were using Google Translate, was we learned more about my great-grandfather, my great-great-grandfather. So Giuseppe Sposato, not Antonio.
Oh, Giuseppe, what a perfect name.
So, you know, did we learn? I mean, is there definitive answers? Did we learn stuff? You know, the fact is that we just kind of like, in the same way as our discovery in Egypt, we just like open ourselves up to what the universe needs to show us and has to say to us about any and all of those
So
things.
Nancy, for me, you know, I get real teary, right? So we go into this record, it's just this lovely village and it's super hilly. So we really did get to the back streets. It was just delightful to be there. And we had 2 great meals at the same restaurant. But back into the records office, because it just felt so like, yes, I'm here to help you. And she comes out with this like old book. And I'm, you know, as me, I've got my video going and they're doing translate. And she is like the most delightful, helpful woman who's trying to make connections for us. And so that moment, as if I was a Sposato, I'm getting all teary.
It's emotional.
Because it was just a reconnection to where his people come from.
So did you ask me, Nancy, if it exceeded my expectation? Was that the last question, or what was?
Met your expectations.
We went. I guess so. I mean, it's easy to say we didn't really have expectations. What did exceed our expectations is that we went to the graveyards.
Yes, and you know, it was like our driver came in with us, and he was on a Sposato last name Hunt, and we went off into the old portion of the cemetery and. I started finding them.
Yeah. We didn't find the relatives that we had searched for in the records office, but it didn't matter. So in that way, it was just a wonder, and it's a beautiful place. I mean, I felt like Francis Ford Coppola was like maybe around the corner scoping out a location. I'm serious.
The love that is poured into these shrines, you know, it just kind of feels like it's honored and people are returning.
So it's a great way to connect with like what the local life there is now.
Yeah.
And that
I do remember seeing the pictures that you posted, and I was so taken with the fact that they put a picture of the person who's buried there on the tombstone. And I thought, oh my God, that is a lovely, lovely way to remember. Because imagine how here you are standing there, and never met this person, have
Right.
no idea about them except what you've
Yeah.
learned in books. And here's a picture of them right there. And it's like,
Yeah,
that's fabulous. I love
Yeah.
that.
it is. Yeah,
So that was that story. It was an incredible memory. It is an incredible memory.
Well, I
yeah.
also remember pictures of the pizza. OMG.
Well, come on. I'm sorry.
Wow. Wow.
Okay, so we flew into Rome from Bordeaux, France. Okay, that's where we were at the naturist place on the coast. It's amazing. But we flew into
first
Rome,
one.
and then from there we took the train to Amalfi, and then from there the train to Calabria, and then from there the train to
Down to Puglia.
Puglia, and then from there we left for Greece by boat. But all along the way, even when we jumped off the train and ran down the street a half a block, and Rich got like a salad and a pot, never
That's
had a bad meal in Italy. It's not possible. It's not
Oh.
possible. And in Rome,
And we tested a
everywhere,
lot of
everywhere we
tiramisu.
sat down. So whichever pizza you're talking about, we agree.
And we tasted every tiramisu that we could. We
It
were just
was-
on a roll. Like, seriously, our hotel stay, what's the Golden something?
The Golden Golden Hotel in Rome.
Yes. You know,
Near the Villa
Mama
Borghese.
Mama Teresa comes out,
She
serves
made
us
us
breakfast.
breakfast every morning.
Like 3 out of 5 days, the starter is tiramisu, and it's really
Which
good.
is kind of weird, but yeah, it was great. It was
When in
super
Italy,
authentic.
eat the way they sequence it. A lot of pastries. I got a little pastry,
Okay.
Buddha belly.
Well, what's most interesting about that is this was a family-run hotel, and only at the moment that I was checking out did we find out that that whole family was from the adjacent village where we were going.
Wow.
Serenese, which is a
Yes.
tiny little place, the kind of a dying little village
a dime.
that they had moved to Rome like decades ago. They're from there, and Mama Teresa that was making us breakfast, the son told us, still goes back every summer to see old friends that are
Yeah.
still there. And we saw those old ladies sitting out in the warm afternoons.
Yeah, there
So
aren't many
it's-
left.
it was just a really great, we loved Italy. I mean, we had never been there together. We'd both been there before separately. And this was what we wanted to do. We wanted to do this little Europe thing. We can't stay out of
Well-
Asia too long, but we wanted to go and do Europe together. And we
Yeah.
had a wonderful experience.
You know, I don't think we really felt the tourist pinch, because in Rome we had done those things, you know, the stereotypical Colosseum, and you know, so we walked by Trevi Fountain a few times just because we had to go from point A to point B, and so it became just like, what else can we explore? Even though it was like super hot and our shirts were like completely soaked and done for
Sometimes.
during that heat stretch, but Rome in particular was so, I don't know, the word romantic is just, I could live in Rome for a month. Maybe when everyone leaves town, it's chill out, I don't know. But yeah, so we've just had a lot of tastes of really great European cities. We've met some awesome people.
So
Yeah.
just give me a taste. As soon as I say who was one of the most memorable people, just give us a brief
Well,
description.
we have friends that we made in Thailand years ago that are French, and they spend some of the year in Thailand and much of the year in their homes in Bordeaux. And they have a place in town, and they have a place at this naturist resort on the coast. And so we were visiting them as their guests in their home for a few days, which was a great way to see Bordeaux. And then we went out, and they have a house at kind of like a resort house, like we would have a house in the woods in Oregon, somewhere like a cabin.
Beautiful location. The place is Aeronaut.
Euronaut, yeah.
I say Aero.
Yeah.
Euronaut. It's so funny. And it's truly a wooded forest, and like during the busy time, there's like 3,000, you know, German and French who kind of came together and
It's like
created this naturist resort right on the ocean.
It's like Black Butte Ranch
Ah,
in Oregon.
Ooh.
Not very many people will know what that is, but it's this bucolic spread out, sort of like individual bungalows and little homes that people rent. It's all naturist. So there's a little town center with the boot, you go to the boulangerie and there's the butcher and a few restaurants.
Yeah.
And if you want to be in the au naturel, that's okay.
Yeah, yeah.
And if you don't, that's okay too. It's like, and you ride your
So
bike
we
everywhere.
bike naked together for the first time. So, that was
And there's
really,
big
really
expanses
fun.
beaches, big expansive beaches to the north, to the central, and to the south.
I mean, you
And
could
there's camping.
you could tent camp, you could car camp. I mean, they
But
have
it feels
all
like
these options.
camping in a state park is what it feels
I
like. a little bit.
recommend it. I could spend a month there too.
So we had time with our friends there, but then we also had like a friend that we'd met also in Thailand, oddly enough,
Wow.
that lives in Berlin, and he's a straight German guy, middle-aged, and he hung out with us. He timed his little getaway. He came to Rome, worked a little bit during the day.
can work
We
the
hung
night.
out with him a few times.
Yeah, we had
in
dinner, like-
you
Rome.
mean he came to Rome just to see you guys?
Yeah, he wanted to come to Rome, and then
Oh,
he was
wow.
a solo traveler. He's
Yeah.
like, well, I'm just going to go hang with Rich and
Stefan.
Paul. So he worked during the day, and we hung out with him. He went to the last museums that we went to.
Yeah. He was kind of our museum buddy.
Yeah.
Delightful guy. So, yeah,
Wow.
sometimes wherever we kind of land, if we're close and he can negotiate, I look forward to the next one. He's
I
Right.
can only imagine what your email inbox looks like with messages from all over the world from people that you have
Yeah.
met with and briefly
Well,
and become
daily.
best friends for a day, and it
Yeah.
ends up being best friends for life.
All right.
daily.
So this is partly why,
Daily.
the podcast for us is sort of like the fourth leg in a certain kind of stool, which speaks to
We're still up
that
for it.
open-hearted, which is a previous tour name, that open-hearted approach. So it's not just our email inbox, but it's really rich mostly. It's our Instagram account, our Facebook page, our website, and then these periodic podcasts as a way just to share with people just the love that we have for them, and we want to feel that love and share our love.
It's so amazing, because there isn't a day we aren't being cheered on by people, or like, oh, you guys are like my favorite, you're so upbeat and share great pictures. So over time, I have accumulated, like, I don't know, about 3,700 Instagram friends, and
Some people collect magnets from places they go. You collect people, and
But,
you've got
our
them for,
virtual-
and then you have them forever. That's
Right,
Yeah.
but we
Like
have you
gold.
too. So we
Yeah.
have our friends in Portland that we stay in touch with, and you've got your A friends and your B friends and your C friends, and you only have so many hours in the day.
Yeah.
But a lot of our virtual friends have like impacted our trips that are coming up, and
yes,
that we learn about things and they become very meaningful to us. So why not,
Yeah,
right? I mean,
yeah.
why not? Because this technology lets us all do it anyway. So it's not
Well-
just all about our fabulous places and where we go. I mean, all that stuff is fine. I mean,
No,
if you have an interest in some of the same things, I mean, our naked friends could care less about our archaeological interests, and maybe vice
Most
versa.
people, I don't know.
But
Yeah.
but those are just as important to us. And
Yeah.
we could talk a little bit more about those two trips too. We have one crazy story to share with you from one of them.
What story?
Well, you had a story and I had a story.
It's funny, there's a guy motioning outside our window over at the other part.
For us to come over?
condo.
No.
All right, well,
Yeah.
he was waving at me, and
Well,
like he was like,
wait back.
wants to give me a drink. It's all right. I was a bit distracted.
Well, I was going to tell the story about in Egypt in my backpack,
This is bizarre.
the backpack Egypt story.
Egypt, I mean,
yes.
we
So-
could do a whole podcast.
So
on
there
it.
was a lot of, you could say that we had more than one synchronicity story in Egypt. And usually you think of synchronicity as maybe like grease in a wheel towards something wonderful. But this might have been something
This
kind
is
of
the
synchronicity
story.
like that was like, how could this happen?
This
It's
is
so
the
weird.
story that as we're leaving with the pyramids in the background of this Mina House Hotel, which is 5-star. I'd recommend it in a heartbeat. I look over at Paul. He's teary-eyed and he says, "Don't ever talk about the backpack again. We're done talking about it." Now, I've set him up for the lost backpack
story. And the thing is, I can get really exasperated. What I'm going to do is not exasperate. This in the retail.
In this moment.
So I have a backpack that zips onto my suitcase. That's the perfect 2-for-1.
Osprey roller bag.
It's my
Love the bag.
day trip backpack. And it got left on the bus one night, the tour bus that we're on every day. And I knew that it was on the bus. And when I went back to it the next day, it wasn't there. And I was sort of like, well, where is my backpack? Well, we didn't know it at the time, but one of the guys on the tour ended up with my backpack in his room.
Co-shared with another guy.
He may not have taken it to his room. Again, we're not going to get into the details because this is a level of that's just a little bit inexplicable.
Paul was at the front desk.
So I'm at like lost and found in the hotel, talking to the tour agency. It's like, this is not a big deal. Other people are leaving things on the bus. I accidentally just left it on the bus one night. It wasn't there the next day. It wasn't stolen. It wasn't this. It wasn't that. It was in somebody else's room and we didn't figure that out.
They checked the airport.
Until we were in Jordan after we'd left Egypt. So we're leaving.
So when you left Egypt, you thought you were never going to see your backpack.
Right.
Okay. So the backpack itself has function. Like I want the backpack, even though backpack itself is replaceable. Inside the backpack is about 300 euros, maybe 350 euros. So not chopped liver, but like, okay, fine. It's just money also, you know, it's comes hard every dollar, but it's replaceable. You know, I had headphones, $300, $200. Okay, fine, replaceable, whatever. It's adding up, but it's not the end of the world.
That bothered me.
So I also had, and I just put it back in there, and I didn't normally keep it like that. I always had it close to my midsection. I had a bundle of stuff that was extra credit cards, extra important travel cards. It's where the money was. So there were credit cards, debit cards, and so I lost all those, and I was watching my accounts like I didn't know if it wasn't stolen. Don't report it stolen. And I was hedging on that a little bit. We didn't report anything missing.
Nothing happened.
So nothing happened to them. So long story short, we are in Jordan, and the tour company calls and said, "Surprise, we have your backpack."
It's at the hotel. Now we have it.
So, but we
at
can't
the hotel in Egypt.
Yeah. We can ship it to you, but we can't ship the cards. So over WhatsApp, they have to record them cutting up my cards in front of me, which is making me crazy. And trying to get the pack to us mailed along the way somewhere. So we initially start with an address in Spain, but Egypt's going a little too slow. So we decide that we'll use an address in France where we're going to be. And so we end up getting we actually have a little YouTube video of this, of me opening it in France and rediscovering the backpack.
That was really strange. It was like another courier that picked it up for
this weird stories all the way through.
And so we were in this like country, little skinny lane at a woman's house, and she comes out carrying his backpack. And so that was another layer.
There were lots of bizarre layers to it. But we got it back, and that's like the most unexasperated version of the story that I think I can. Did I leave anything out? Do you have any questions about it?
Well, how long were you and your backpack separated?
About 6 weeks.
At least.
Yeah.
And then you finally got money reimbursed.
Maybe about 4 weeks, right? And then later in Crete. So.
Yeah. What do you mean you got money reimbursed?
Well, so the $350, the 350 euros, about almost $400.
Helped pay for shipping.
They couldn't send the cash in the shipping. They could send the backpack and there was a book or two and the headphones. They could ship all that, but they couldn't ship anything financial, including the cash.
Yeah.
So they had to cut up the cards in front of me.
Yeah.
And then the cash became a separate, like, we have to figure out how to make that, how to get it to you. And so they sent it to me Western Union, and I picked it up in Crete at the very end of our Europe time before we hit Turkey.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
So
What a story.
it ended. So, and we left Egypt June 3rd, left
Yeah.
Jordan about June 6th or 8th or so,
8th,
whatever
yeah.
it was. And we didn't get the money from the pack until August something.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah, it took a while.
And it was all perfect in its own way, but
Yeah.
I feel your frustration. Things like
it's
that
funny.
are so complicated and complex. They have so many layers, and it's like this energy that just kind of weighs on you until
Yeah.
it gets
And we
resolved.
It's so
second
funny.
guessed ourselves too. Had we left it on the bus? Did we leave it on the plane? Are we out of our minds?
Yeah,
and
we
we weren't.
played it
It was
over
on
and
the
over and
bus.
over. And our travel mate, one of our favorites, and this was the first group in Egypt, Deborah, out of Florida, and she would say, "Paul, just trust your angels. It's okay. Trust your angels."
Oh, how
And-
sweet.
And so,
Right.
and she was like maybe 5'1", and I started calling her our little cup of love, and she is a delightful.
Hopefully
travel
she's
mate.
listening.
I
Hi.
hope so. Yeah, hi, Deborah. So
And where does Deborah live?
she's in Florida. She's kind of
Fort Lauderdale area.
Yeah.
Okay. How fun.
Right.
Your little cup of love. I love it.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yes.
So that's that.
Well,
Next up,
I really am salivating also to hear about Egypt, because oh my God, the pictures. Wow. So for people who haven't yet been to your Facebook page, your Instagram, or your
or our website.
yeah.
Yeah.
My gosh, don't miss it. Your Egypt trip was remarkable.
Nancy, that whole thing, I'm really grateful because while we've been here, Paul has been updating hotelguys.com. And so he's just layered more photographs on top of what I already posted at Global Hotel Guys on Facebook.
Mhm.
So, this is all what we just kind of create our visual memory. And so we don't forget.
Right.
Lines kind of blur. You have tickets to go in here and there. And it's like, it's so, you just want to be in it, and yet you want to photograph it. And then you jump back out of the photos world, and it's like, oh my God, I'm right in this.
I'm here.
I'm here
Yeah.
with Tutankhamun, in his skeletal position in his tomb.
Well, and you had a remarkable person that helped you navigate all this. Tell all of us more about him.
Yeah, we traveled with Dr. Robert Schock and his wife Katie, and they together recently did a second revision on their recent book on ancient civilizations. And he is a geology professor at Boston University, and such a great self-effacing man. He was just somebody that we just really fell in love with.
Both of them.
So, they weren't leading the tour, but they were kind of co-hosting it. And we had an extraordinary archaeologist who was of the caliber that would travel with Dr. Schock and his group. So we really benefited from really being with top-notch people who, presented the dominant Egyptian civilization narrative as archaeologists lay it out.
Right.
And where it was appropriate would also interject alternative ideas, because this is really a kind of living history. There's a lot of new discoveries, even the new discoveries of the new chambers of the Great Pyramid, which some believe are reflective of actually a new emerging level of consciousness of mankind. So it's easy to go there with the rock guy, but it's really easy to see, like a lot of people on the tour were, I think, in some ways, more spiritually engaged in a level that maybe even the people that were doing the tour don't live it that way. So we went there with these Aquarian sort of new eyes and tried to just not make, we couldn't make sense of it all really even at once.
Well, I mean, yes, because there was a lot of teaching going on
Yeah,
in
a lot.
each location, right? And that's like, thank God you get the visuals to go with all of the storytelling. And the Egyptologist was amazing. He really, um, yeah. So there are moments when I think, okay, group tour, 31 people, kind of like the same place for dinner, that whole thing.
Right, the logistics of travel is what I was going to mention.
But
as
again,
well. There's all of that.
I having done people to people with high school kids, that's kind of, pre-Paul, right? Um, running 40, 42 kids, that kind of pace. As an adult now, the pace is, I understand it. And when you're there, you really want to drink it all up. For me, I think 4 nights floating the Nile River was really amazing. And we had a couple off jumps in between, and that I will never forget. There's just something about being on that water, just something about being in Egypt, to be honest. And
cool museums, and we were in the Great Pyramid.
And
we went into the King's Chamber and all of it. We went into the underground chamber.
Yeah.
So we're still, I mean, I just redid it on our website. It's actually under highlights on our website. The whole Egypt tour, I did it by day for our memory, where we went, and just relived all of those things. But we also on our website have a favorites tab, and at popular demand a few years ago, we added the worst hotels that we've ever stayed in. And one of the hotels in Egypt actually made the list, which takes quite a bit to actually make that list. So it's the full gamut. You'll see the splendor of the Valley of the Kings, and Rich looking a little bit cockeyed after coming out of I took his picture after he came out of the Great Pyramid, where when he touched his necklace, his previous necklace of Sekhmet, up against the wall of the Great Pyramid King's Chamber, it exploded off of his neck. And these little silver type beads went everywhere on the floor in the Great Chamber. There's still some there, I'm sure, in the King's Chamber.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, that's the story.
This is, I don't know if you can see that a little better. This is Sekhmet, and she is a force. And so I had just recently restrung these beads that I had worn for years and years, and my mother had given me. And so in ceremony, I just touched and ended up with a divot even in this silver as a result of the power of the King's Chamber. And it just felt, my neck just went wham, explosion.
Wow.
It just took me to my knees. And then all I remember is like my friend Monique on the floor going, Rich, it's okay. It's okay. We'll find them. And I'm looking at the cracks, and right away my head is like, no, some are supposed to be left behind as my offering. I just knew that.
Yeah.
And that was just one experience in these places that I don't understand. Sekhmet had me on my knees in a temple when I first
off shrine at Karnak near Luxor.
And that one was, again, and other people over dinner, especially the last night, we kind of started sharing our magic stories that happened when we were in the Great Pyramid. And this experience, everyone knew something happened to me, because Sekhmet was a very, like, maybe 5-foot statue, long and slender. And we walked into the room. It was like only 5 people could go in at a time. And we'd get our moments, and then people would move on. And we walked in, and I think we were maybe second or third in that group. And literally, it was as if someone just like unplugged the balloon in my belly, and I went, and I gasped again. And the next thing I knew, I was on my knees in front of this statue, wondering, what is this? What is happening to me? And then the tears started running out of my head.
It freaked everybody on the tour out, actually.
So So something happened between the two of us.
And it's not uncommon in that particular shrine at that particular place in front of that particular statue, Sekhmet,
So I'm not alone.
the goddess of destruction and regeneration. That things happen. People go there specifically. It's actually not always open, so it's not always clear that you can get there. A little bakshish or a few Egyptian
Coins.
notes
Yeah.
to the keeper of the shrine.
So
will
they
get the door open.
Paul kind of like pulls me up and he's like, we have to go. And next thing there was like a middle room. There's like a statue that the head's missing. I don't remember who the statue is.
It's Ptah.
Another power.
Yeah, another. It's a very powerful place.
Phew.
So Ptah and his wife Sekhmet, and then their son Nefertum was the shrine to the left. So we spent a little time in each thing, but everybody on the tour was altered. Some have their own weird experiences.
So we get into the final room and Paul's like now tapping on the wall in this room going, put your forehead here, put your forehead here. And I'm like, what? You know, I was so confused, and I saw this golden stone at my feet, and my brain just said, you just have to go look and see what this is, right? And Paul's like, you know, here. And I just saw this tiny little hole. I put my forehead in there, and a beam of light, which as they designed this temple,
it's well designed,
threw this beam of sunlight at us. Meanwhile, it's like all of a sudden this energy between Paul's heart, my heart is just like, woo, you know, and I'm like, what is happening? I'm just crying. And I just knew there was like this love, power, energy that I did not want to leave. But yet in my head, I'm thinking, okay, the tomb keeper is like right over there. He must be really weirded out by this, you know, long-haired old guy.
He's seen it all. But what's notable, it was amazing. I didn't want to go. These are power spots. This shrine is not there by accident. Whenever it was built, which is not all that long ago in the scheme of things, it was previously a power spot.
Yes.
It was previously a place where people went and had sacred ceremony.
Yes.
It could be electromagnetic or geomagnetic in some way. There may be water underneath it that causes a certain possible change in human consciousness if it's harnessed in the right way, using the right tools. See Egyptian mystery schools for more. I mean, it's all about that. And this place is indicative of many places that we went to that are like that. And so it was just when I was reading about India those years ago, and all roads kept pointing to Egypt, and I'm like, I don't want to read about Egypt. I don't want to know about Egypt right now. I want to focus on India. And
this is when the pile of books started getting really high.
I really
came to office desk, if you remember, because
I certainly do remember. Yeah.
Right. Yes. I mean, I came to appreciate how Egypt, in a way, I never studied history like this. I'm doing it now, I guess.
Yeah.
But to really appreciate the underpinnings of how the Greeks used so much of Egypt to formulate what became the Roman world that we've been living in for this last cycle. And newsflash, it seems like cycles are changing. So it was a wonderful time to go to visit and just sense the transition that's happening in our world, inside us, within us, between us.
And meeting other people that are also kind of like opening to a whole new vibration.
So
I think, just a second, I think, in summary with Egypt, another little side story, because I could tell, stories forever. We met this trio that was in a temple in Middle Egypt, and from a distance, I was just kind of like drawn to this guy, drawn to him, and we play this with this game. It's like 5 stories, okay, and with
other travelers.
You just make up stuff, and you're always wrong. But it was like we decided he was the lead singer, the little guy was the drummer. And, the other guy was the, lead guitar player. Right?
They were cool guys traveling on their own. Everybody else
not from Texas, as Paul thought.
Yeah.
And so they were also bright lights. And I was drawn to the message that when we finally spoke, they're German and they do pilgrimage to Egypt frequently from Germany. And they sit in meditation in these places, fasting and really open to the magic. And his message to me was that as we travel and others that are interested in Egypt, when we meet, it's all about us telling our story and the experiences that we had when we were there. Because yes, we've traveled a lot of places, and yet that's one of those kind of, as a woman who said on this Turkish tour, said it's not spiritual. You're not having spiritual experiences. You're having they're even beyond that kind of a description. And so you land in a place like Egypt, and it kind of slaps you in the face, where you have memories of being there in the past, which I was not alone in this group of travelers. So whatever's happening, as the German said, it's all about us now bringing light into the world. And it's with us in that conscious framework that we're all finding each other as travelers, of telling our story, that you must go and experience Egypt. And it can be gritty. And we were, in Middle Egypt, we were one of like 100 tour buses, only one goes into that particular region.
On average.
So it's because those are the advantages of tour groups, right? In certain places. So we get that. And I think maybe we're also like naturists now. We're realizing that those groups, the geeky kind of educational tour groups that like archaeology and old things, we kind of have found really good friends because we're all curious.
You're very like-minded. Yeah.
Kindred,
We're curious.
kindred for sure.
Yeah.
And I would just say, in sort of wrapping up Egypt, that there was great value in traveling with a rock guy, Dr. Shock. There was this
The
basis,
rock guy.
the kind of this grounding kind of basis in science too, and just being open-minded to what the archaeologists still say, where you might disagree with them in some ways, and where you think they're missing the boat, and it's up for you to, for all of us to formulate our own worldview. So we've learned loads, and our minds are cracked open.
We haven't even talked about museums. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
We're the geeky guys that go into these museums. And
I think we need to think about doing a follow-up, because I don't think we certainly cannot cover
Well, we could do one, because our trips, since we officially ended and we're going home to Portland, Oregon for at least a few weeks in the November timeframe. But we're traveling again no later than December 8th, and probably before. We're back on the road in a new tour. So,
I think we haven't really completed this tour. I think all of us have a lot more we want to know, and a lot of places you haven't had an opportunity to really delve into. So in the few minutes we have left, why don't you give us your wrap-up thoughts for this particular event, and give us an appetizer for what we're going to talk about next time.
A wrap.
Wrap and an appetizer. Sounds like the chicken.
A wrap and an appetizer.
Well, as you kind of led into, we've had a lot of hotel stays, and as a result of doing this kind of travel thing and shining light on good people, we really have met awesome people in hospitality. Housekeepers we see day after day are working so hard. And it's just a reminder to love on these people and appreciate what they deliver as travelers. The other big, I guess my new soapbox is, like, let's not use so many plastic bottles. That really, we carry our own water bottles. We've stayed in a few places that'll provide us like a nice glass container with water, so it's little simple things. And then, our longer term Airbnb kind of stays where we get a month, to just kind of chill out. We love those moments. And I think as we age as travelers, we find it's just like, okay, we're going to do this real big, and then we're going to like, okay, kick back. And so people don't have to worry about us because I think we're like scheduling in old guy naps and read time and, just kind of catching up with friends and our families, because this lifestyle is really delightful. And, I keep remembering my massages that I would get a year ago in Thailand with really skilled people. I'm going to go back there
eventually
in October
a
of
year from now.
2024. So all that medical tourism, acupuncture at $15, I'm like really getting spoiled to the whole way of my life in this kind of home stretch. So
right, we're going to come up with an ideal.
A lot of ideas and turbulence happening in there.
It's not done yet, but we are formulating a year-round ideal itinerary. And it can vary, but it's just a few suggested itineraries, because so much of where we go, we realize, is driven by what weather do we want there when we get there.
Yes.
Somebody had said that we chase summer around the world. That's not entirely true, but it's a little bit true.
We do shoulder seasons quite well.
Some too.
Yeah.
So, okay, so that's a good, like, kind of, for the time being, last thoughts on the trip. What I can do is give you a little teaser for what we're up to. Rich mentioned long-term Airbnbs. After our little pit stop in Portland, we are going to do the month of December in Buenos Aires. And we had taken an Airbnb, and this is going to be very interesting because that society is going through some stuff right now. And so, it's easy to talk about going here and going there. And Rich kind of alluded to like stopping and smelling the roses and being aware of all the people that are around you, the people that work in the hotels, and to try to be present in those experiences, interacting with taxi drivers, just noticing people on the street. It's like to try to consume and observe the now moment, if you will.
Yeah.
So I have like 6 tabs open on one of my browsers online, and the one page is planning Mendoza, Argentina, a wine country visit. Another page is planning our Japan trip for next April. And so we can be very consumed by like the broad macro stuff, but we do try to like be in every moment. And so these month-long trips, like the one that's upcoming in Buenos Aires, is going to be one of those opportunities. Drop in, shop like a local normal person, and in the case of Argentina right now, as I understand it, experience like 80% inflation rate.
Whoa.
So, yes. So they've been through this before. Somehow they seem to know how to do it. I think for us, it would just tear us apart if we were like that for a couple months. But
I didn't know this.
Yeah, so that's going to be our experience.
We have
in
Canadian
December.
friends that are there, so we'll get to see them for a few days.
And with this, a first-time visit to Argentina for us.
They love it.
Then the month of January, we've taken a 1-month Airbnb at a nature's beach in Uruguay, which is just like a little puddle jump flight from Buenos Aires to Montevideo, and then a little further east to Punta del Este, Uruguay.
Huge beach.
And we'll be there in a really funky, nice Airbnb for 1 month. And then
all natural.
Yeah. And I mentioned that we have a little bit of other things we're going to do in maybe Brazil and Chile, including Easter Island. So we're still discovering. Yes. And then we will be in Japan and Bali, including other places in Indonesia, some old Buddhist shrines, and a very mysterious place that I'm drawn to in Indonesia. Stay tuned. That may be among the oldest places discoverable on Earth right now, and it's a little bit suppressed too by the powers that be.
Teaser lines.
So we're still in our archaeological discovery. We still are we're still trying to be topless and bottomless.
Yeah.
And we still have an interest in going to new big cities that we haven't been to and exploring new regions of the world.
And always tasting Indian food, by the way. That's been our
wherever we can get it.
Everywhere we are.
We found an amazing place in Lima, Peru for Indian food. Yeah.
We did.
So that's answering your questions, I think.
Wow. Wow. My head is spinning. It's like, holy moly, we got to do this more often so we can keep up to date on all these. I mean, really, you're
Well-
just you're living a remarkable life, and sharing it with everyone is, to me, the beauty of what you have going, because we all get to tag along. We can
So
look at your Facebook page, we can see all the videos
Yeah.
and all the pictures, and but hearing the stories direct from you, nothing can replace that.
Well, we can't
uh,
wait. We
with
can't
you.
wait to see you in person, you and Colleen, and we'll get together and do.
Absolutely. Oh,
Yeah.
don't you know? Yeah,
Yeah.
very
yeah.
much looking forward to it. Well, you guys,
Same,
this has
same.
just been remarkable.
Yeah. Thank you so much for just being our little moderator.
You're
And
easy to
I-
talk with.
no, we love you,
Yeah,
Nance.
it's, well, this
you.
for me is just luxurious to be able to spend this time and to hear these stories. But yeah, nothing is going to replace actually seeing you and putting my arms around you. And yeah,
Uh,
that I am really looking forward to.
mhm.
All right, you guys, see you
Yeah.
soon. You stay
See you
well,
soon, Nancy.
travel safe.
Thank you so much.
Oh, you're so welcome. And all I need to do is figure out how do I, oh, here we go. No, how do I stop the,
Stop the insanity.
where is
Be off.
the recording? Oh, here it is, way up here.
Yes.
Stop
Right
recording.
where it was
I
last
hate
time.
to stop it, but here we
I
go.
know.
1, 2, 3.